Yeah, I got meat in my backpack. You guys can hear me now. Yeah, technical difficulties resolved. Hey everybody, welcome to another Piece of Ash. This is my Patreon edition, so today I'll be hanging out and chatting with my patrons about all kinds of stuff, but I do actually have something on my brain from the last Piece of Ash that we did, and that's actually talking about the hype machine that is 40k. And Games Workshop right now, actually. We talked a little bit about videos last time on a Piece of Ash, and it got my brain going onto something I noticed. And the thing that I noticed was actually that, and this isn't just me, that I don't watch a lot of YouTube videos, but I wasn't seeing a lot of videos pop up and things pop up in social media, even on Facebook, that weren't about the new 40k. And I thought that was interesting because I'm connected to a lot of like Facebook pages, obviously like pages and stuff for companies. And usually my feed, like my Facebook feed and my YouTube feed, are full of like previews and sneak peeks and stuff for various games. I'll be getting updates on like what's new from Corvus Belli or what the next Privateer Press like insider is. Like that's usually what my feed looks like. And I usually spend about 30 minutes in the morning after I've posted my content. I kind of like chatted with you guys and read my email inbox and tried to clear up the clutter of like communication that I should be catching up on. Just scrolling through those feeds, like seeing what's new. Like that's part of like my morning ritual. And over the last few weeks, I'd started to realize that I wasn't that I was not seeing new things. It's that I was having to scroll forever to see things that weren't about the new 40k. And when we talked about it last week on a Piece of Ash, it actually got my brain working as to like what could the reason for that be. And so I did some digging. And what was really interesting, because I don't really pay a lot of attention to my metrics and stuff, was I went through on Social Blade. And if you don't know what Social Blade is a fantastic website. And what it lets you do is it lets you see things like trends. So like this is my YouTube channel's graphs on Social Blade right now that you guys are looking at. And you can see here, like if I go over to them, you can see here, it's all the way back from when I started. So June of 2015 is when I started. Like I got about 1,000 subscribers and I had about 24,000 views. And then in July of mid-June, and then July, this is when Age of Sigmar came out. And it got spoiled. And we did that one Age of Sigmar video, Owen and I, like the night before it actually like launched, everything went online. And that's actually, that was when like everything exploded. So like literally second month in or whatever, we made that Age of Sigmar video that first like night, checking out the game and stuff like that, and it like blew up. And then over the last like 2 years, you can see everything's been pretty consistent. Like views tend to grow. They've been slowly growing up to like 200,000 or so. And the last couple months have been relatively consistent around 200,000 views. And that's pretty consistent for my channel. And I float around 1,000 subscribers a month, which is pretty consistent too. And then I tried to figure out, so then I went to my analytics and I actually checked out my views, and I'm actually down, like not a lot, like not a ton obviously, but for the last like 30 days, my views are in like the 170s, and they haven't been that low for a long time. And so what was interesting about that to me was I wanted to check when that started, and it's just been the last month. So I went over here to the Games Workshop website and the community thing. And it almost perfectly lines up. So like the beginning of May, it perfectly lines up with when this started, which is, if you go back, like check it out. This is when the stuff started. So right here at the beginning of May, we start looking at every day. There's a post about a new rule for Warhammer 40k. Or a new thing from Warhammer 40k. So what are data sheets? What's the faction focus? Like we're going to do faction focus on Eldar, like talking about Eldar. And there's an article like every single day. And then I went back and I actually started looking through YouTube feeds. And what was neat about that was when I started looking back through YouTube feeds, there was, every time something would go up on the community page, there'd be like reaction videos, there'd be posts about it on Facebook and stuff. And so what's really fascinating about this is that something they'd leak a little bit of information every day. It's just a fantastic marketing thing. And it would stir the pot online to the point where everything else got drowned out. And it's amazing because when I look at my sidebar, my Facebook feed, I don't normally see 40K videos. So I don't watch YouTube videos in general. But what I typically see is if I'm like editing one of my videos on the screen, I'll see like videos that are related by tag. And usually those videos are to do with whatever game that is. So whoever else has made like an Infinity video or a War Machine video or Relic Blade video, even like Owen's always show up on the side of my feed. Those are the first things that pop up. But there's a few metrics that YouTube uses to balance these things. One of them is how recently the video was posted. And the other one is usually it's view counts, like how many people have seen it and stuff like that. So it's by tag, and then it's by view count, and then it's by, actually I think it's by temper, like how new it is, and that's by view count. And those are like the three key things. And then, so it really, what shouldn't be happening is videos of different games that don't share anything other than like a wargaming tag shouldn't be popping up on my sidebar, unless there's so many of them that they're always the newest video. And one of those three criteria is pushing down all the other videos. And that's been happening for like 2 months. It's fascinating. It's like being in a really crowded room. So you were in a fairly crowded room before, but people could hear you talk, and then all of a sudden there's like a bajillion people in that room, and they're all talking at the same time, and it's harder to pick out individual noises. But most of the people are talking about the same thing. They're all talking about the same stuff. And it's been just fascinating to see it happen. Now that I've like noticed it, and I've started digging through it, it's been really neat to see how that's actually like come to be. Like it's just an effect of this amazing marketing that they've done, and this marketing plan, and how well it captured just the attention of the audience. And so it's been amazing just to actually dig through and see, like, to check like the dates and to see like the impact. And if I could actually, like, I wish there was some way to pull this. I'd have to probably do it manually. If I could somehow find just like the jump in how many 40K videos are now being posted like every day and are just not, because it's not even talking, it's either people being mad about, or people discussing the latest rule, or people posting, now it's all people posting battle reports because the game's out. But like just the volume of content that is about one specific topic now is amazing, and it's gonna change in the next like 2 months. It won't be new anymore, and so people will settle down, right? Because if it's now 90% of the conversation, but 50% of that 90% is talking about what's new, it won't be new soon. You know what I mean? Like people will, like, they'll be settling into like the game and like learning everything they want to learn. And so like it's not probably a thing that's going to last forever, but it's been really fascinating to me because it's actually had an impact on the channel. It's reduced the number of views by about like, I mean, it's like 10-20%. Like, it's not a huge amount. When like in the grand scheme of things, probably 15% probably over the last 3 months. But that's amazing to me that the simple marketing of like a single product launch it just shows how big that pool of players is, that it's dominated both like the social media feeds and the YouTube feeds. And actually looking back through it, it's like it's quantifiable. Like, you can see the number of videos. And if you were just to like, if you just type like wargaming into a search bar, I guarantee if you see 20 videos come up, probably 18 or 17 of them are probably about the new 40K, the new 8th edition 40K. So that was really it. It was just, this was one of those things that I noticed in the last, it kicked off my brain from the last piece of Ash, because someone got me talking about it. And I did some research, and it's like a fact. Like, this is probably the biggest marketing like movement or like success. And it was even in Vice magazine. Like, that's how big it was. It got into like Vice's like gaming segment. And a whole bunch of like newspapers and stuff, like how big the edition was, that it's just churning the ones and zeros in the internet and bubbling everything to the surface. And so it's really fascinating to me that it's actually pushing down other content. You can't see it because if you're just going by percentages, if like 1 or 2 things come out, for a different game, but 20 come out at the same time for this one game, it's like putting down 2 pennies in a sea of quarters, and you're trying to pick up the pennies. Like it's really, really neat. It's really neat to see, and it was really neat to like do as like an experiment to actually see if I could prove that it was actually happening. And you can see if you just go back and check the dates, and you start pulling up if you just do the tag and then you start counting, like if you look at 100 videos and you because I looked at probably 50, and you just do percentages, it's in like the 95 to 96% talking about wargaming is talking about this, or it's how to paint those models or whatever it is. So there's my little diatribe. It was like super neat to see like how that worked and how people like blew up about it. And yeah, no, like well done hype machine, because this is literally the biggest like I've never really noticed an internet hype machine before, but it's interesting to see like how dominant in the conversation that is. It's the 99% is now talking about this one thing, and who knows how long it's gonna last, but wow, the fact that it's actually like pushing metrics around and having like a quantifiable impact on things like YouTube is just, it's neat. It's super neat. All right, so we're going to do some questions from the mailbag. I got some questions in the mailbag as always, and then we're going to do some questions from the chat as well. I got my patrons here hanging out and watching. So I'm going to do some mailbag ones first, and then you guys in the chat, make sure you throw in some questions to get me going on new topics. All right, so first one. Okay, so this is a weird question. And I'm trying to find out who actually asked it. It's going to be Cornates are red, violets are druky asks, what kind of stories do you find most spooky? And he managed to actually rhyme both the name and the question, which is fascinating to me. Okay, so it's funny. I can watch zombie movies. Like, I can watch the most vile, like, B-rated, like, you know, spaghetti on the face zombie, like gross, like, gore zombie movies and not have any kind of like flinching at all. The problem is that like I get super like nauseated when something could happen in real life. So the more over the top something is in real life, like a story, it starts to like I don't care. Like I'm totally desensitized to it, like completely. But if it's not, and I have actually a really good story about this. If something isn't over the top, if it's very normal and everyday, it tends to affect me a lot more. So I have a story about when I was in high school English class. This is like 95, maybe 1996. I'm sitting in my high school English class, and it was a creative writing class, actually. Joe Seagram's creative writing class. Joe Seagram's a fantastic teacher I had at Trinity College in Port Hope. And he was reading it. He was basically trying to teach us about setting the scene and juxtaposition. It was a writing course about juxtaposition and how you have something terrible, or not exactly terrible, but you have two things that are happening at the same time, where the one contrasts the other. Basically, the one puts the other into relief. So it was this book called Red Zone that he was reading a passage from to show juxtaposition. And Red Zone is a book about discovering the Ebola virus, which was like a terrifying time, because like in the 90s, especially the early 90s, the Ebola virus was just being discovered, and it was like the most terrifying thing the CDC and like all these like the WHO had ever like found out about. Like it was completely horrifying. Nobody knew what to do with it. Like it was a terrifying thing. And the really like scary thing about it was that it was coming out of like a fairly like a out of the way place, and no one really knew what its origins were, like the strain of the virus and stuff. And so the juxtaposition, he read a passage from the book, and the juxtaposition is an airplane, like an airliner, full of just like normal everyday people, and it's just describing them going about their business and like just sitting there reading, doing crosswords. And I mean, this is the 90s, right? So they're reading books, they're listening to Discmans, they're listening to CD players, or cassette players, like, you know, because that was still a thing. And there's this one guy, and he's sick, and he doesn't know he's sick, and he keeps throwing up into like this like paper air sickness bag, and he's throwing up and he's so feverish and out of it as he's climbed to altitude, he doesn't realize that eventually he's just literally throwing up blood. And as my teacher is describing this, as he's rocking back and forth, and he's describing this in this like slow monotone voice, juxtaposing like the plain everyday children playing around him to this guy like rocking back and forth in an airliner, and he slowly rocks forward, and this like bag is now completely full of like his own blood, and it just tips and starts to pour out I literally fainted in class. Like, I just fall out of my chair and I fall on the ground and pass out. And like, you've got these like 20 like teenage high school students all just enraptured by this guy. He's a fantastic speaker, and he's got us just like intensely enraptured. And then I just tip out of my chair, like fall over on the floor and pass out. Cause like I was so like drawn into this like juxtaposition of this story that it totally, like, I just felt nauseous and I just literally fainted. Like I fell down and got knocked out. And like, it's the only time it's ever happened in my life. But that's what taught me about myself. Like if I get freaked out by the more something terrible is happening in like everyday life. And so the stories that are always the scariest to me are the ones that like could happen or even have happened. So like the true crime stuff, the stuff with like, there's like just these everyday people or everyday circumstances that happen, or everyday people have these like terrible, crazy things happen to them. Which probably says a lot about like myself and like my obsession with like the post-apocalypse and all that stuff. Cause that's usually what, and even zombie movies, like that's usually just regular people being thrown into like crazy situations. So there's that question getting answered. So let's jump over to the chat and get some questions from there. 15 minutes ago, my urban mats asphalt mat and 2 sets of asphalt terrain finally arrived, says Tim Berry. Yeah, it's awesome. I actually used that just recently for, I used the 4x4 asphalt mat for Infinity, and it was so great because I have so many great Infinity mats. They all have roads on them though, except for like the interior like deck plating mats or whatever. And I never bring them to tournaments. I always bring the ones that don't have roads to tournaments if I can, because then I can set the buildings up wherever I want. And the asphalt mat was fantastic. I actually used it with the new Bandua pre-printed terrain at Lords War weekends. And they're perfect together because you got this great pre-printed terrain, and you got this great mat, which is just asphalt. You can put them wherever you wanted, and it was like the easiest. It was like this table was like 10 minutes to set up, and the one next to it with roads was like 15, 20 minutes to set up because like I had to like figure out like how to make it look right and play right at the same time. It was more of a challenge, but can be done. I hope you enjoy it, man. They're super great, and I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff for my zombie game using those because obviously they're perfect for setting up regular buildings. You can check out Model Train Stores for that plastic-filled terrain, those plastic like 1950 style like, or just like regular everyday urban houses. If you're looking for buildings, they're great. They're plastic. They go together really easy. They're actually kind of pre-colored too. If you just want to throw like dull coat on them and then weather them and stuff, you can actually just do them out of the box. And they're perfect for those mats because they'll just sit on the mats. You don't have to have any kind of footprint for your stuff. They're great. Who else is here? That was Tim Berry. We've got Star Night Flame. We've got Martin Keating, Anthony Lee. Everybody sound off. We got Dancing Pigeon, who's up late because he's sick. And nobody else. Says there's 14 people watching, but I only have 5 names in the chat, and nobody has thrown out another question. So we're going to head back over to Survey Monkey and pull another question out of there. Tom Lynch asks, could you add some painting videos, Dark Age preferred? Tom probably hasn't heard my usual answer about painting videos. If you want, usually what the best way to get me to give you painting advice is if I post photos of something I've worked on, which I usually do, and you see something you like in what I painted, just ask me there, because you'll get an answer. Like, I'll always answer if somebody asks me a question how I did something. Actually, I've answered a bunch of questions just recently when I painted my St. Isaac stuff about how I did like all the rust marking stuff. I'm actually doing the same thing right now on these awesome objective cages and stuff from Arsenal, using the Vallejo weathering pigments and that stuff. But I don't do painting videos. And the reason I don't do painting videos is the only part of my hobby left that I don't share with you guys is painting. And so it is my time for my wife and I to sit down and binge watch Netflix and hang out together in like the living room when my kids are asleep. And I can still get something done but like actually relax. And so, I don't do painting videos because it's the bit of my hobby I'm still doing. Like it's my bit of like personal hobby I have left. And I'm precious about that. Like I know enough about myself and how work affects your enjoyment of something, especially when you make something make your hobby your job. Having worked for Workshop for so long, that was a big thing. It was actually one of the reasons why I loved picking up like little skirmish games and board games and stuff like that, was enjoying those on my own time help me appreciate what I was doing for work, and it didn't make me drag my hobby into my job, or resent my hobby because it became my job. So that's like, this painting is super important for me to keep as like my own personal thing, because it's like my sort of like sanity check for everything. It's something I just enjoy doing it. I'd be doing it no matter what. Like, I'd be doing it if it had nothing to do with the work I'm doing right now. And it's this like Zen task. So if I made it into like painting videos, if I added a work component to it, I would have nothing. I would be recharging on nothing. You know what I mean? Like, there wouldn't be a single hobby thing, which is actually doing what a hobby's supposed to do, which is being that mundane task that occupies your forebrain so that your hindbrain can like process data and you can defragment your human hard drive. And yeah, so that was like, it's a big thing for me. And I know a lot of people ask me to do it, but there are so many great painting videos. Like, just go watch Duncan Rhodes paint anything. And as long as you realize that, like, whatever he's painting, if you just want to paint something the same color, like, it doesn't matter what he's doing. Just type in Duncan and green and you'll find a way of painting green that's great. Or weathering or whatever. Like, the resources that exist right now online for painting, I can't teach anything new. It's just going to be in my voice, you know what I mean, or in my words. And I understand that does have an impact for some people, like having me do it, but I can't make people paint faster. People, that's the number. It's funny because that's the number one thing people ask me is, how do you get so much stuff done so fast? It's just practice. If you've been painting for 30 years, you will paint as fast as I paint. But the trick is, paint every day for 30 years. And you'll have a library of ways of doing things in your head where you don't even think when you sit down. You just pull your paints out and you start painting and stuff gets done. It's like anything, right? Repetition. What's the saying? The masters failed more times than the beginner has even tried. So and that's really it. Like, you just keep on doing it and do it all the time and do it till you can do it in your sleep. And just paint the fence. Mr. Miyagi, paint the fence. And you'll paint as fast as I do. But it's like, literally, that's all it is. I've been painting miniatures since 1988. So it's almost 30 years of, well, it's going to be 30 years in July. Or close to. Like within a month or two, probably, because I probably started painting Citadel miniatures the summer of '88, because it would have been between grades in school when I actually had the time to like go and buy all the models and paint them myself. So yeah, because I would have had money then, because I've been working, having a paper or whatever it was I was doing for money. And that's it. Like, that's my only, like, there's no painting class to make you paint faster. Anyone who says that they can make you paint faster or teach you to paint faster, they can teach you tricks. But the thing that makes you paint faster is confidence and repetition, right? You paint faster when you don't hesitate or think. When you're just painting all the time and you have ways of doing things and you're just unlocking different like tricks you have in your head. That's all through repetition. There is no book you can read to make you paint faster. It can get you started and it can certainly shave time off, but really being able to crank stuff out like consistently and all the time, it's just practice. This is all it is. That's all you can do. Let's go grab some questions from the chat. Anthony Lee, what's your thoughts on the new Primaris and Death Guard stuff? Yeah, it came out last night. I think I put a bunch of pictures up on Facebook about it, and it is okay. So there's two things I really like. I used to love the press fit miniatures when I worked at Workshop, just as a store clerk. Like, this is 17 years ago, 16 years ago, something like that. Like, we had the little boxes of like 5 skeletons or 3 Chaos Warriors or whatever, they're snap fit ones. And they were great because when that kid comes in, who's too young probably to play the game, but his dad is, like encouraging him on this, like, you've got an interest, like, let's take you and go check it out. And we used to have ones that were like press fit models and paints too, and I think they still have them. They were like my go-to for like, yeah, check this out. Anybody can do this. It's not a talent, it's a skill. If your kid's interested in it and he really likes it, he'll figure out how to do it, right? Like, if he's not really interested in it and this is just like a flash in the pan, here's a great box that you only spent like $10-15 and you're ready to rock and roll. You can try it and see if he likes it. And if he does, he'll finish what's in this box. If he doesn't, then you knew it was just like something that caught his eye and it wasn't for him. And I was always pretty honest with that with customers, because I do believe that like you either like miniature wargaming or you don't. There's like a gene. what was it? Somebody whose name I won't say used to call it the hand on the knee test. So if you're in a bar and you've been chatting with a person that catches your eye, and there's that moment where you first make like physical contact, right? You've been chatting for a while, you think things are going well, and you put your hand on the knee or the hand on the hand or whatever it is, and you get that like, oh, this is good. Nobody pulled away. We're gonna freak out. We're good. That was the same thing with the toys, right? So like either people like they took them and they built them and they painted them and they liked them and they didn't shy away from it. It wasn't too hard. It didn't discourage them, or they didn't, and that probably is the gene that says they're going to be into miniature wargaming or not. So yeah, no, the thing with the new Primaris stuff is I love the fact that they're slick models. Like they look fantastic. They look like models that I want to own and paint. Like especially those Reavers look awesome. In their death masks. They're half death masks and they're like recon armor, which is exactly the thing I want to see. And they're high sci-fi too. They're not covered in too many skulls or too many like weird medieval bits either. They're pretty slick sci-fi, like all the Primaris stuff is actually. But they're still snap fit models. There's the best of both worlds. So it means that if there's a guy at a workshop store that wants to give a kid like, hey, check these out, look at how awesome they are. Not only do they look badass, they don't look any different in quality from the models that are currently being produced. They are easy to put together and easy to do. So good on them. The other thing I like too is they actually complement the Death Guard one in particular. Complements the box set really well because they put 7 Death Guard Marines in the box because it's the God's number, and I'm fully on board with that. I think that's awesome. It's thematic. It's perfect. But you really do want a 10-man squad of those guys, and they're all unique sculpts that make that squad 10. So if I was a guy playing the Death Guard half of that box right now, I'd go buy that 3-man box and be like, I'd be so happy they did it just because it means that I can have that 10-man squad. It's like when they did the 2-man upgrade of Retributors for the AOS box so that you could get your 3-man Retributor squad up to 5. I was like, this is perfect. Yay, you thought about this and you did this. It looks fantastic. I feel like the Reavers are going to be a 3-man squad, sort of like the Intercessors. I don't know why. Like, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I really hope they do something with 2 Intercessors. I think that'd be super cool. Like, add in 2 Intercessors and give you, like, the ability to have, like, a 5-man team, because I think those models are awesome. But then you just might want squads that are by 6s. You know, like, this, it happens in AOS, too, where, like, you've got 5-man teams and you've got 3-man teams. And the 3-man teams are usually 3 to 6, and then the 5-man teams are usually 5 to 10. They might just be one of those teams. So who knows? I'd be jazzed to see, like, a 6-man multi-part posable, like, just, like, full kit of those. The captain... He's cool. Like, he's not... The thing with the captains I've noticed, the 2 captains, especially when it comes in the box, and the new one, is because they're wearing helmets, they don't have a lot of personality. Like, I like them, but it's just like when Gilliman's wearing the helmet. Like, I like that he has the helmet option, but he doesn't look like Gilliman. He just looks like a giant space marine. And there's something to be said for that, but it's not... It doesn't have, like, any personality. The Librarian's awesome, because the Librarian's got that, like, bearded, like, grim face. He's kind of dour. Like, he's giving you, like, this, like... I'm the guy that knows stuff in the battlefield, like sort of look, which I think is awesome. So the kudos. I think they're really good splash kits. I like the first line of kits to come out, and they complement what comes in the box. The Primaris second captain is kind of a weird choice though, because he's not really that like I don't know why you take 2, and he's not that different from the one that's in the starter set. So I feel like maybe he was just an alternate sculpt of what could have been in the starter set, and they just released him. Whereas like if they'd done like a Librarian and a chaplain, you know what I mean? That would have kind of made more sense to me. Or, because you get lieutenants, you get ancients, or even more lieutenants, because the lieutenants are actually a really good choice just with the rerolling wounds, and they're cheap. So I could see myself having 4 lieutenants and having like every squad run around with a lieutenant, especially once there's a transport option for Primaris guys, because they're just a squad upgrade almost. You know what I mean? Like you might have lots of them just to like float around and do stuff. Or an apothecary. There's going to be Primaris apothecaries. Like the captain's he's the only odd duck. Like he just seems like a weird choice. The zombies are going to get used in my Mordheim warbands. They're perfect mutants for my Cult of the Possessed, and also perfect for the Carnival Chaos that I have. So like I'm just going to buy that 6-man box because Owen's already got the Nurgle half of our star set that we split. And use them for both those kanks, because it's mutants for my Possessed, which I don't have any models for, that are awesome, and then it's actually more mutants even, or just like Brethren or whatever for my whatchamacallit, my Carnival Chaos. So I'm stoked about that. Who else is here? Jamblor's here. Ben Davis is here. Who else we got? Looking for that. Philip Meads here. Jamblor, hey Ash, last couple days before the internet's disappeared for 2 weeks. Oh, I'm sorry, dude. That sucks. Are you moving? You must be moving or something like that. What else we got? Oh, somebody's here.
I got,
hey, shh. What do you need?
I hurt my leg.
You hurt your leg? Uh-oh, we got a sore leg. How'd you hurt your leg? Were you jumping?
No,
What were you doing?
Going sitting on the bed.
You were jumping on the bed. Okay. We were climbing up on the bed. Okay. Well, can I put you back to bed?
No.
Yes, I think you have to go back to bed. All right, so we're going to pause for a second because this one's climbed to the bed and obviously is being an attention hog and wants to talk to you guys. Can you say hi and bye? Say hi and bye.
Hi and bye.
Look up the camera. Up the camera. Say
Hi.
Hi and bye.
Hi and bye.
All right, we'll be right back because someone has not napped yet and needs to nap. Yeah, we're back. So she's figured out what the camera is. That's what it is. When I was setting it up, they were eating their lunch. They were sitting around the table back here eating their lunch. And she knows that she can say hi to you guys through the camera. And so now when I try and put her down for a nap, she keeps sneaking out like right before I start because she wants to say hi. And she really is exhausted. We were at the playground this morning for probably an hour and a half after we went to the gym and she was playing at the daycare there. But she's been like fighting to stay awake because she wants to say hi to everybody. Which is funny. What's next? Ash, do you have an educated or uneducated guess on when we will finally see elves in AOS? Just curious what you think the grand plan may be and why it hasn't happened yet. So, here's my thought on that. And it's less to do with elves and more to do with the way things get developed usually. So you have 4 Grand Alliances. You're trying to create stuff for each of them. So now 2 of the Grand Alliances actually got releases even prior to Age of Sigmar being launched, which was Chaos, and actually the Elves too, through the new Wood Elf stuff that came out right before the end times. We're getting steady, consistent releases. All right, so that product line, if you just look at like the Age of Sigmar armies as like columns in a pie chart, how new boxes are there will determine usually how stuff gets worked on in any company, and that's just product longevity. And the reason for that, it doesn't have to be Games Workshop, is if you've recently spent money on making something, your warehouse is full of it, and it's something that is a current investment. You've spent money making it, you've spent money stocking it and shipping it, and you're not going to go back to that thing until you've sold a whole bunch of it. So because High Elves were one of the last armies getting worked on in 8th edition, they got a bunch of stuff with the, like, Elves in general got a bunch of stuff with the Wood Elves towards the end times. And then you even just recently got more Nature Sylvaneth stuff. They're pretty topped up. The High Elves specifically had, like, the Phoenix, they had the plastic Phoenix Guard, they had the plastic White Lions and stuff. And yeah, that stuff's not Age of Sigmar specific, but it's more recent than, let's say, the Dwarves, who are about an edition. The Dwarves got worked on during 7th edition Fantasy, which was when Skull Pass came out. The Dwarves got their rebranding and all the new miniatures. And the newest thing in the Dwarf army was the 8th edition North Army book. It gave you the Iron Drake / Ironbreakers, which weren't a new unit, they were just a resculpt, and the Longbeard / Hammerers. So 2 new box sets for Dwarves and some familiar characters. versus like 6 or 7 new kits plus resculpts for the high elves 4 years later or 3 years later. They're probably not due. They're not doing the cycle for a while, but it's probably coming up. So like they're getting to the point now where you've got the Sylvaneth stuff done. So like all the woody tree crazy demony stuff is like finished. And now the question is, what are the elves doing in the realms? You know what I mean? Like we haven't really heard a lot about them. We know about the Dwarden. We know about like we know now some of the lore behind the Flyer Slayers, and we know some stuff about the Kharadron Overlords and like their story, their background, sort of like how they've survived the chaos, like breaking apart the realms and what they've been doing. But we don't really know much about the elves. We don't really know what they've been doing. Apart from Alariel, who was asleep in a tree for a long time, we can't be super sure about like where they've been and what they're doing. So if you think of like the Age of Sigmar like background being like a chapter book, that chapter is probably coming up relatively soon. I'd like to see them. I mean, but they've got to hit death again. They haven't done. End Times gave a lot of new death models as of the end of 8th edition, so they're probably in roughly the same boat as the High Elves. They're probably due pretty soon. And they're really pushing Shadespire and that Necropolis thing right now in the background. So I'd suspect the undead stuff's going to be first, right? Because what Nagash has been doing since like basically breaking apart the alliance that was trying to defeat Chaos, and what the City of Shadespire actually is and what it means is I think the chapter that's about to unfold in the realm. So you'll probably see some cool new undead stuff. It'll probably coincide with when the Shadespire miniature game comes out. The little fast play competitive game that they're doing. But then if you ever really want to know probably how soon something's coming up, and it's still a ballpark guess because things can always change. Think about how old their most recent kit is, and that's gonna give you a rough idea of like where things go in like the development cycle, because it's how much product they have left that they've made of that stuff versus what are they gonna do to get those customers excited to buy stuff again. And some things trumped out, like new additions trumped out, like Space Marines are going to get a whole bunch of stuff in 40k for the next little while because these Primaris Marines need to be an army on their own. So even though Space Marines get like releases all the time, there's never like a oh, it's been a while since we did a Space Marine release, you know, like there's things that can sort of trump that. So I think you'll still see sprinklings like Stormcast stuff come out, Chaos stuff come out, even though they've been constantly getting releases since the game started. So yeah, I don't know. What else we got? Any news on a newer, bigger space thing? I'm about to talk to the landlord about just taking over lease in the space I'm in. So the plan is that we're going to just stay where we are for now. If we need more space, we'll have it, and we'll continue subletting the warehouse space to the current tenants. So that's the plan for now. That Anthony Lee, that face when Ash Barker's been painting miniatures longer than you've been alive. I'm old, man. What can I say? I'm wearing a. This is funny. Now people probably know who this band is. This was Nick Oliveri and Josh Homey's version of Queens of the Stone Age before Queens of the Stone Age. It's actually, I think, maybe even I won't say better. It's a very different band from Queens of the Stone Age, but their sound is more like back when I liked Queen of the Stone Age's sound a lot more, which would be like Songs for the Deaf and Rated R. That was my era of the new singles came out for Queens of the Stone Age, and it sounds more like a Eagles death metal record than a Queens of the Stone Age record, which I think is interesting. Or them Crooked Vultures record. The sound changes all over the place, which is fine. I mean, it's a good thing, but like the Kaya sounding Queens of the Stone Age was my favorite Queens of the Stone Age. What else we got? Do you think GW is trying to sneak in a bigger scale to 40k? This is Ben Davis asking this. So here's the thing. I don't know if they're trying to sneak in a bigger scale. The gameplay, because having played a bunch of 8th edition games now, the game actually doesn't use very many more models. Like the gameplay, to play a 2001 game, you're not actually going to use that much stuff because the game is encouraging you now to use big powerhouse models, and it's actually allowing you to take big powerhouse models. It actually makes the game quite small. Like my 2,000 point list that I'm working on, my 8th edition army, is like hilariously small because it has 2 knights in it, right? Like, and it has 2 knights in it really just because I've always wanted to play an army with 2 Imperial Knights, and I've had 2 Imperial Knights and I haven't had a reason to paint since I bought them. Since I bought the Renegade box, and I'm gonna paint 2 Imperial Knights, and they're gonna both be free blades. and I've already got their names. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be the Red Fang and the Baroness, and they're gonna be. I'm so excited about it. It's gonna be just music jokes everywhere. And I was gonna do the Elephant Rider, but my friend Owen out in BC, who runs the big games workshop store out there, already has the Elephant Rider, so I couldn't do that. But maybe someday I'll go out to BC and I'll take my 2 free blades, and he can fight his Elephant Rider against the Red Fang and the Baroness, and people maybe will get that joke, but probably not. Yeah, no, I don't know. I having played it now, it does seem to like encourage power models. The ITC, who's kind of like in this independent tournament championship circuit, so I think it's supposed to be circuit. I can't remember what it actually stands for. Which is the boys out in San Francisco that run some of the bigger events, and are actually kind of in bed with GW now. And I noticed this actually again because I just realized they wrote a ton of the community articles. So like all the faction focuses that you see on the website during the like ramp up to the new 40K coming out. A bunch of them were written by the guys that are from Frontline Gaming, and so it's interesting because when that happens, they've gotten some sanction now, I guess, from working with the GW guys, because like they're effectively representing the business on the community page a little bit. We can kind of draw some intent lines between the way the ITC is going to run, because if Games Workshop is going to work with them and support them, then there's some sort of tacit approval of the way the ITC is running. And the announcement they made on the formats. And the formats for ITC are basically the rule book. Like, it's just Eternal War missions and 2,000 points with up to 3 detachments, which is just the rule book way of building the armies. Like, there's no, like, bans on anything. There's no, like... and I would suspect, just to kind of, like, keep GW happy, they're not going to do any bans, because, like, the one thing GW wants more than anything else is if you buy something, you buy a big toy, and you spend much money on it, they want you to be happy with it, right? They want you to be able to use it and be happy with it, and not for it to be something that, like, you can only bring out, like, once in a blue moon, because they want you to buy lots of them. So what that means is if those are the ITC formats for this year, for 8th edition, it's game on. Like, Hellhammers and Warlord Titans and, like, all that stuff. It's allowing Imperial Armor, so it's allowing, like... It was so funny, because I played a game with some of the new Imperial Armor stuff from the Index Imperial Armor, the Forge books. I downloaded them on my iPad. And I have because I bought them. I think I bought them at a Games Day, like, 6 or 7 years ago. I bought Cyclops demolition vehicles, which were the little, like, remote control RC bombs. And I bought them like 3 editions ago, and they were never very, very good. Like, they're never great. The rules for them in that book are ridiculous. They're so good. They're like for 40 points, and you can have 1 to 3 of them as, like, I think it's a heavy choice or something like that. They're ridiculous. Like, they're amazing. I think it's everything within D6 when you detonate them in the shooting phase, as long as they didn't run or advance. Sorry, everything within range takes D6, strength 9, -2 save, D3 damage hits automatically. Doesn't roll a hit, just blows up. And, like, I went and parked in the middle of my opponent's army, and like it like quintuple. Like, it killed probably like 400 or 500 points of the models. Like, it was insane. I had 2 of them. And you could easily take, so for 480 points, I think, you could take 24 of them. Yeah, something like that. You could take, because you could have 3 times 6. No, so you could take 3 times 6, which is 18 of them. Because you could just have a wall of 18 of them driving around. Just being like, here, deal with this, deal with these guys. You can't kill them all before they get to you, and they just run in the middle of your army and, like, explode everything. And knowing the way the competitive players play, right? You know what I mean? Like, that just could be the way the game gets played going forward. Taking whatever's crazy. So it's gonna be interesting. I don't think the model count's gonna be that high. I mean, there's an argument to taking a lot of models, but I think it bogs the game down pretty significantly, because the everything doing everything, like resolving everything individually, there's still some fast dice, but like you pile in every model individually, everything fights. The way wounds even overflow now, for instance, because things have a damage stat, like in old 40k, everything just did a point of damage, right, in the last edition, and you just added up points of damage, and that's how it killed the squad. In this one, because lots of multi-wound things exist, and like lots of things do multiple damage, you sometimes have to do 1-to-1. Like, if, okay, this guy makes a save, how much damage does it do? It doesn't quite kill him, or it overkills him, you lose some of the damage. Like, you don't just total damage and then apply it to the unit. And that can really slow down, like, a shooting phase. You wouldn't want to play with a ton of models. Like, playing with lots of models could be really tedious, because there's a lot of little like processes to do step by step. So yes, it's faster, but in some ways, the procedural stuff can be a bit slower if you took a certain type of army. Whereas if you just take like 3 big guys and go rush each other, then it's not gonna be so big. What else we got in the chats? Mailbag's here. He plays for the game 8th, and it was a blast, but he got blasted. Yeah, well, I'll be honest, whenever a new game comes out, or a new edition, it's actually better to play it stupidly. Because the more you play, the more you're reckless and just go in and try things, I find the faster I pick the rules up. Because if I try and do everything in every phase, so like, if I was playing 40k right now, I would always make sure I had one of each type represented. I'd probably play a battalion if I was winning it from like day one. I'd make sure I had a psyker. I'd make sure I had one of everything, just so that it forces me to try all of the rules in the game, and I absorb it faster by doing, obviously, than I do just by reading a book. So, rushing in and just making sure that you take part in every phase, even if it's a stupid idea, it's not tactically sound, I find you soak a game up faster. So, whenever we try a game, especially when we do Let's Plays, what we usually do off-camera first is we try a game out. So we'll just play a stupid game, like even the models aren't finished being painted, we'll try it out just to get to grips with it, and that actually lets us usually go home and paint miniatures and get more prepared for the game, because we've done a like dry run and we've just kind of like mucked about. And yeah, like so, like for instance, yesterday I filmed Rumble Slam with Steve from Mountain Miniatures Gaming. Mountain Miniatures Gaming, yes. And beforehand, we played through the whole game. Probably took like half an hour to play a whole game, but we just mucked about and figured out what all of our guys did. And so the second game through, everything was like way smoother, and we kind of had an idea of like what each piece could do and how they'd work and how they'd be useful and stuff. So that's my thing. Next question up. Will they make more excuses for Sister Battle becoming 2 feet taller? It does make them easier to paint. I don't think you're going to see any like Geno enhanced Sisters of Battle anytime soon. I mean, they might. Who knows? They could do it. If it sells well, do it. Like, who cares? The argument for making guys bigger, though, is if you want to recruit more young players, it does make them easier to paint. You know, like, the easier it is to paint something, the less frustrated a customer is with whatever they've purchased, the more likely they are to enjoy what they've purchased, and there's some value to that. I think that's an important thing to remember. And it's one of the reasons why I think for a long time 40k was more accessible, because the models generally were bigger than fantasy models, because fantasy models had to rank up. So like you had this like cube that was the size of the base that most fantasy models had to stay inside of, or at least all in the same regiment be sculpted in such a way that whatever was poking out from that cube was all poking the same direction. So everybody's holding a spear, they're all holding it forward, and they're leaning forward a bit, so the guy behind them is also doing that. That was literally a design restriction in fantasy, so you couldn't have really big models because they all had to fit into the template of a movement tray. Which is why one of the big, I think, like things that's opened up in the studio now for Age of Sigmar is the ability to sculpt these really cool, intricate models. And people have been so pleased with the models because they're not constrained to these like tiny little things. It was so funny. The joke was, always when we work for a workshop, you put Grimgor Ironhide next to a regular 40k orc boy, and he was so dinky small. But he's he's supposed to be the biggest orc in fantasy, right? Like this huge, like crushing war boss. And he's like this dinky little guy next to like the average knob in 40k, right? Because he's has to fit into a ranked up unit of orcs, and so he can't be that big. Yeah. So I think that'll happen in so much as it makes things more fun and accessible to like a younger audience. I don't think it's a problem really. Like I like the fact that the Primaris Marines look like Space Marines though, next to like a Guardsman or a Sister Battle. So they might actually just keep everything else that isn't them the same size, because that actually makes them look more impressive by comparison. Like when you put Marines on 32 mil bases and you stuck them next to Guardsmen, they actually looked really cool because they had this big footprint. Like it visually beefed them up without the models actually becoming bigger and made them look like they were Space Marines next to like the average Imperial Guardsmen. So I hope they keep that, because I like the idea of that. Have I talked about the new $33, $80 box that's coming for 40k? So hyped about these new Reaver models. Yeah, we actually talked about that right at the beginning. And they were actually, yeah, I said the same thing. I was like, they're super cool. I'm glad they did them first because I think they're going to be they're a good bridge between finishing what comes in your starter set and making that an army. Like particularly the 2-player one that doesn't come with a hardcover is all the stuff you'd want doubles of for both armies. It gets you more intercessors, more plasma guys, You get a second captain, but whatever. Like, you might want a second captain just to convert. But you get another plague drone, which you super want. You get more of the plague marines, and you get a unit of the the plague the zombies, whatever they are, the Nurgle zombie guys. So you get the stuff. You mostly get the stuff you'll beef a first star set up with, and you get a playmat and stuff too, which to some people is super important. They want to be able to crack the box open and have a go right away, which I think is super cool. A long answer to a different question. Will they become more excuses for like Sisters of Battle to become 2 feet taller, blah, blah, blah? Oh, I think Marines got bigger because, one, they needed to be bigger. I think I missed the first half of your question. Marines got bigger because they needed to be bigger. Because like they've always needed to be bigger. And it was like a convenient excuse for making them bigger. But like I don't think anything else is gonna get bigger. Like I think they're gonna keep stuff the same way. Because otherwise it would have been pointless for them to make Marines bigger if everything got scaled up alongside them. You know what I mean? There's always going to be scale creep, and I think scale creep's been for the reasons I was just describing. But like making the Marines bigger makes them visually more impressive, and it's that juxtaposition thing I was talking about earlier. You have to have the regular human to make the Marine that's big look impressive. So I don't think that they're going to change that. I wouldn't, because it would make the choice of making them bigger. You'd have to constantly be making them bigger for some reason. It would be like, what was that book? Oh, there was a book where like the impressive human armada goes out, and there's like giant chicken people that have even bigger, and like the humans are like microscopic by comparison. I can't remember what it is, but it's like there was a book about that. It was a scale thing. It was just funny. Mailbag says, I'm hyped for the Rumble Slam stuff. Yeah, it's super fun. It was exactly the mix of like simple, but like with like combo chaining and stuff that I wanted it to be, and then just like totally goofy and off the wall. Like it is unpretentiously exactly what you think you're gonna buy when you buy a game that is fantasy monsters doing pro wrestling. Like it does exactly what it says in the tin, and I was super happy about that. It made me happy that they achieved. Feeling is really important for me in miniature games right now. I've noticed, having played as many as I have in the last 2-3 years, how a game makes you feel is actually, I think, as important. I honestly think it's more important because it's a thing that I don't think enough rule designers think about when they write a game, and the people that wrote this game clearly thought about how you were going to feel when you were doing things. So like simple things, just like bouncing off the ropes is like such a big key mechanic, and like it's such a part of wrestling. If you've ever watched wrestling, you know that bouncing off the ropes is a big deal, and using like big guys using the ropes to get around, because like big guys in wrestling have always been slow. Like you can't be like one of these guys like Andre the Giant, who is 7'11" or something like that, and like 500 pounds, and actually move around the ring fast. And they've always historically used the ring ropes to just get them moving. You know what I mean? Like get them going. And that's legitimately a tactic in the game. Like, so you actually, like, your big guys only usually have like a very small movement stat, but they can bounce the ropes to go get over to the guy they need to go get over to. And it's so much fun. It was super fun. I've just got what comes in the starter set, so I'm gonna have to pick some more stuff up. But I put it with Steve, and Steve was like instantly just like, Steve doesn't even like wrestling, but he was just instantly like, this is so stupid and fun. I want to pick it up now. And there's a local shop in Hamilton, Black Knight Games. It's actually carrying it. They've stocked it all, so I'll probably go have a browse around there at some point, or when Owen's up there, get him to send me a picture and see what they have in stock, just to grab some of the characters and stuff. Because I there's some of the characters, like I really want to get the halfling that's Roddy Piper. I really want to get the dwarves. I really want to get the dwarf that's it's Ronnie Salvage. It's Randy Savage. Like there's so many, like, just I want to get Gun, which is basically Hogan, but it's an orc. Just stuff like that. Like it's great. It's super good. And yeah, highly recommended. If you want a silly fun game, definitely recommended. Mailbag asks, wargaming unrelated, but I know that you've traveled a lot. Tips for a road trip. About to head on one this weekend. Pack snacks. Pack snacks. Have like music that you're excited about loaded on your iPad or your whatever already, like whatever you use to stream music in your car. Find something to do halfway in between where you're going and where you're coming from. And that was always important for me, because like the best way to make a long drive not seem like a long drive is to get out of the car and go do something for a bit. And even if it adds like 30 minutes or an hour to like your trip, we would always try and find like something in between to stop and do that made that made the halfway point actually worth it. So you're actually going like an 8-hour drive or a 10-hour drive is actually a 5-hour drive to here, and we take a break, and then a 5-hour trip over here. I always try and break up road trips if I can, because they're not so miserable, and the people that you're in the car with don't just Lord of the Flies turn on each other over time. And then the last one is get up early. Start driving at 5 o'clock in the morning if you can. That's my number one road trip advice is be on the road before the sun's up, and that way you can actually enjoy part of the day where you're going, and you can properly rest. You know what I mean? You can actually properly rest. So go to bed early the night before, get up around 5 a.m., get yourself some coffee, go hit like whatever the early morning donut shop is on the way out, pick up your friends, be out while the sun's coming up, and be on the road, because you'll avoid whatever the major traffic is, and you'll have the day. You know what I mean? So if you do take a break around noon, like let's say you get up at 5, you're on the road at 5:30, you're done. You've gone 7. You could be going 7 hours before lunchtime, before 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That means you've gotten wherever your first leg is, and even if you spend an hour or two there, you can still get to wherever your final destination is. Let's say you're going to be crashing like at a hotel or something like that. You get there before like a decent amount of bedtime, so you can crash out and feel like you had a decent day. And that's my 0.01. What else we got? Bill the Galactic Hero and the Little Lizard Guys could entirely be that, Ben. I can't remember the story. It was Chicken People though. I think it was Douglas Adams thing, but maybe it wasn't Douglas Adams. I can't remember. It's like the chicken people were like, we'll take care of this, stupid humans. The humans thought they were going to fight the big bad, and the chicken men were like, yeah, you're adorable. You're so little and tiny. Speaking of TT Combat, though, their new MDF-style Gothic buildings are really dope. Yeah, they're pretty cool. I actually really like their modern stuff as well. Katina Jane, what are you doing? Come here. Why aren't you in bed? Okay. This is getting out of hand. What were you doing over there? You just singing? Why are you singing? Why are you out of bed?
No, yes.
Come here.
No, yes. No, yes.
Why are you dancing outside your brother's door? I think it's time for you to go and actually have a nap, because you're gonna be really tired otherwise, and you haven't slept yet.
I don't want to.
I know you don't want to. You never want to have a nap.
I just want to stay in here for 1 minute.
For 1 minute? Okay, you can stay in here for 1 minute, and then it's time to go back and have a nap. All right, come here. No, come here. Come here. Come see me. All right, you can say hi, and then you're gonna go back and have a nap, okay?
No,
Because I'm almost done my show, and then we're gonna go and we're gonna do fun things. But until then, you need to actually try and pretend to have a nap, because you can get really fussy otherwise. Don't touch that. Oh, that's the mic. Don't touch that, okay? You can't touch that. Okay, so you can say hi.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Hi. I don't want to nap because now I know there's a camera, and I can play with things on Daddy's desk, and we can do this. So yeah, I honestly think we've gotten to the point now where this is going to be a problem, where she does not want to not be a part of whatever's going on in here when I'm recording. And we're gonna have to figure that out. Hey, let go. So we're gonna go back and have a nap, right?
No.
Can you promise that we're gonna have a nap?
I don't want a nap.
You don't want a nap? Well, that I am well aware of. But we're gonna take one last try to have a nap, and I'll be back after this. So yeah, we've gotten to the point now where because she knows that I do this every Monday she just does not nap, and then she is like super miserable for the rest of the day. Because I don't know if you know much about 3-year-olds, guys, but when a 3-year-old gets up at 6 o'clock in the morning and then goes to the park and goes to the daycare and plays and then has a big lunch and then doesn't sleep when she should sleep and she's overtired, it's like trying to have a feral animal in the house with you. I imagine it's like living with a bobcat for the next like 8 hours of my life. Yeah, but that is what it is. Parenting, it's exciting, it's awesome. What else we got here? Have you any interest? So Mailbag asks, have you any interest in possibly designing a narrative play episode for the show? Oh, you mean narrative play for 40K? Yeah, I might. I might try other game modes. Right now, we're just wrapping our brains around it. We're trying to figure out what it's going to be. You know me, though, and I usually like playing games in a non-standard kind of way. I definitely want to do some historical battles. I had an idea for doing like great battles in 40K history as like a series and like do some like the small engagements and do them as narrative stories. But what I might do is I might do them in all different editions of 40K. Because after I was doing the Let's Play for 40K and I was looking at all the other editions, I was like, I have to do. I want to like show people what this game used to be. You know what I mean? Especially like back to like Rogue Trader and stuff, and you're like a GM and stuff. Martin Keating asks, what's your thoughts on edge highlighting? Every edge or less is more? So edge highlighting to me, and I think you just nailed the two schools of it. There's guys that will literally go and they will highlight the edge of every single hard line of a panel, right? To me, that's not what highlighting should be. Highlighting should be what the word highlighting means, which is you should be putting brighter tones on the high points of a model. So wherever point of reflection would be, that's where a highlight should go. And so I tend to not highlight every edge. What I'll highlight instead is I'll highlight top leading edges where my light source is, and I'll leave the lower edges unhighlighted. So, because what happens if you highlight every single edge, you end up with this very 90s bright style of painting. Like if you go back to like the 90s, like Black Templars that came in the 2-player starter set for 3rd edition 40K, they have a gray line around every bit of contour on that power armor, which is very completionist, but doesn't... It looks, it's very cartoony. Like it has a very specific look to it. And so for me, I came from most of my painting advice I got as a kid, because I got it all in real life, was from uncles and friends who did like military modeling and like scale modeling. And so they would teach me more natural painting techniques to try and get you to have the thing look like it does in real life. And that was always the goal, is to give you a natural look, not a sort of like cartoony look. Whereas in pop culture, modeling and wargaming, there's all kinds of shades of gray of how you do things. You might want a very cartoony look, but you might not. So I'm just of that school, like you said, the middlemost look, where I like stuff to look more natural. I'm actually painting 2 Imperial Knights right now, and I'm going through and like figuring out in my head the way I'm going to do it, and it's going to be very like dark and oil marked and grimy and not bright. Their heraldry is not going to be like, well, they're also free blades, so like who knows where these things are being stored when they're not in the battlefield. But they're not going to be like these, like they're not going to walk off the assembly line every time they go into battle, which is how like you'd imagine like maybe a Mechanicum vehicle might look, stuff like that. It's funny, actually, Mailbag just said, Martin Keating, for visual reference, every metal style highlights every single panel. They do and they don't. Sometimes they don't anymore. It depends on whose painting you're looking at, because there are some heavy metal painters that'll do that. They'll do it the old way. If you look back to like the last couple of Space Wolf releases and those box sets, those Space Wolves on the box, they're highlighted that way. Like every panel is highlighted like to whatever like the top 2 layers are. But then if you go back and you look at some of the character models, they're not painted that way at all. They're painted more like a competition standard. And there's all kinds of different standards inside heavy metal, I think, for how you do stuff. The main one being that it should look achievable. But yeah, like there's a wide variety now of painting styles appearing in White Dwarf. I think when you see the line troops, though, you're right. Most of them are going to be painted to a way that is that like every panel gets outlined basically in a slightly lighter shade of whatever you're painting it as, because that's something that's easy to teach and it looks good and it's definitely achievable by the average person that's buying that box set. Whereas the character models, they have a little more freedom and they go a little bit crazier on how they do things. Anthony Lee says, next week that we know the GMG Let's Plays are going to be father-daughter affairs, and that would be adorable. Yeah, we're a little ways off that yet. Yeah, no, that would be. I mean, that's something to look forward to. But like, I'm gonna be real old then. I'm gonna be like, you just said that I've been paying longer than you've been alive. Imagine how old I'm gonna be when I'm playing with my kids. Like, I'm gonna be pushing 50, as opposed to pushing 40. This is gonna be close. Yeah. I'm sorry, Mailbag. When I said most of the Primaris Marines have been like that, yeah. Everything that's a line troop and everything that's gonna be a star, so it's always gonna be paid that way. But yeah, I know Duncan would not do that in Warhammer Live. He does it all kinds of different ways. There's all kinds of painting ways, and I think that you've got. My personal one is that second one that you said, where I definitely like to do things from a way that's more natural looking. Next up question, going back to the mailbox. Tanman5000 asks, "Hey Ash, super stoked that you're doing a piece of Ash so frequently. It's my favorite show to listen to while painting. Question: do you and the family have any crazy plans for Canada 150? No, unfortunately, we're like when you have young kids and you're parents, most of your life revolves around that. Like my planning schedule, if it's not work related, is just like survive the week. We got some stuff coming up, but for Canada Day, actually, my mother-in-law's birthday is Canada Day, so we tend to always be doing something because it's her birthday. So it's my wife's birthday or my mom's birthday. And that tends to like prescribe our plans right there. And then my wife's actually started masters rowing as well. And for some reason she has a regatta on Canada Day. So like there's actually like a rowing event. She's gonna be in a race on Canada Day. So our Canada Day is like super booked. And I wish it wasn't because I'm excited. Canada 150 is pretty cool. I know friends of mine are gonna go see the big City in Color like festival show on the Sunday, which is going to be the day after. There's a big like concert here in Niagara with a bunch of like big bands like the Arkells and stuff like that are going to be there. But yeah, no, I don't have any specific plans. Go like I'm at that point in my life where like a statutory holiday is just like a day off. You know what I mean? But when you have little kids, it's not really a day off. So it's like how much can I put on the barbecue and consume while sitting outside? Hopefully my kids aren't getting sunburned, and I might drink one beer if I have a moment to do so. I wish my plans were more exciting. When I was younger, I didn't have kids, they probably would have been. But they are mostly just like survive the day without anybody having sunstroke or heat stroke, and when I'm lucky, drink one beer. and that would be awesome if I got to do that. I will be happy and satisfied with a single beer. They do. Philip Mead says, "Get them painting soon. I started my daughter an old Dark Elf Dragon at 5 and they did good." Oh yeah, no, that's kind of like a it goes without saying that I'm gonna encourage them to do like whatever kind of art they want. It's funny though. I have a very specific, and I don't think I've said this to you guys on this live show yet, but I have a very specific philosophy with my kids and like my interests because I don't want to push anything on them. Does that make sense? I had a lot of experience when I was younger where my parents had specific interests, and for the most part, they just let me try things and discover what I liked. But there was a few times where when they were very passionate about something themselves, and they tried to get me to be passionate about it, I actually shied away from it. And it was something that even later on in life I really enjoyed, but when I was young, I resented it a little bit because I felt like I was being forced to do it. And so I'm kind of conscious of that with my own kids. And so with miniature wargaming, I want them, if they are excited about it, I want them to be excited about it. But if they're not excited about it, I'm not going to try and make them do it. You know what I mean? So like, they're already around it all the time and they already see that stuff. And when they're interested, they get to try it. But I don't want to like assume they're going to be hobbyists, you know what I mean? Or even try and like stack the deck. I'm more excited to find out what my kids end up liking than I am excited that they'll like the same things I like. So I think my philosophy for it is I want to give them like a menu of things to try, and then they can pick up the thing they're jazzed about. You know, expose them to everything, and they'll find out what they like. So like I'm big on like exposing them to music. I love exposing them to like we have all kinds of instruments that we play in the house. Exposing them to art. Like my daughter right now is obsessed with making cards. I don't know what. I don't know why, but like she wants to make greeting cards and invitational cards. I think just because she learned she can fold paper in half and make books and cards. All she wants to do all day long is drawing cards. So like her thing right now is she's making books. So like this morning we folded a piece of printer paper in half and we made a shape book where she asked me what kind of shapes she asked me to draw shapes, and I drew like circles and squares and diamonds and hearts and stuff, and then she would color them in, and then we'd make shape books that she could then give to people, because she always wants to give people something. So like give my mom, give my mother-in-law, or give my wife like a book or a present or something like that. And I don't know where this came from, but she's super into it. And the same is with hiking. Like, I love hiking. I love backpacking. I don't want to take my kid. I give my kids the idea that we could go do it, and then they go try it. And if they like it, they like it. And if they don't, they don't. But we always make it like an adventure. We always make it a reason to go out and do that. We're going to go fly a kite. We're going to go find bugs. We're going to do whatever. So I'm not just saying, let's go walk in the woods. You know what I mean? I'm getting them to try things. And the same with miniatures. I'm just going to put miniatures in front of them, and hopefully if they like it, they like it, and we can do something together. But there's so many things you can do together with your kids that, like, I actually won't be bummed if they don't like this stuff, because then it can still just be mine. You know, it can just be my thing that I do to relax. And it's nothing that's, like, attached to anything else. So yeah, I don't know. I'm very, I mean, maybe it just sounds weird as a philosophy, but I'm more into discovering who my kids are gonna be than I am trying to shape them. If that makes sense. Like, I don't want to force them to be anybody. I think that whoever they're gonna be is already in there, and I'm excited to, like, I just want to throw stuff at them until they figure that out themselves, because I think they'll just be happier if they do that. What else we got here? Mailbag says, being from Utah, drinking a single beer is essentially meaningless. I don't drink. That's fair. You don't. Although, I have a fantastic single beer that I've had from Utah. And it was, I bought it in, there's a small microbrewery that I bought a Utah beer in when I was at SLC. I was in Salt Lake City airport traveling through. So there's actually some beer out of Utah. And it's pretty good. What else we got? Anthony Lee says, y'all give me hope that I won't have to give up miniatures when my kids come. I'll be honest, there's only one piece of parenting advice that I got while I was getting ready to become a parent. And this is something that is, as soon as like you find out you're going to become a parent, and people know that you're going to become a parent, they just like descend on you with advice. Like, everybody's got some kind of story and stuff. And it probably only stuck in my head because of the way the person that gave it to me started the conversation. And the conversation started with, you're probably getting bombarded with advice, and I know that sucks. And so I'm not going to give you any advice. I'm just going to tell you what I did. The one thing that I learned from doing this that I thought was useful, that maybe it's useful for you and maybe it's not. And if it's not, then just don't listen to me. And it was more of a philosophy thing than like a how to change a nappy, like how to do things parenting thing. And it was quite simply, don't change your life when you have a kid. Include your kid in your life. And that's the one thing that I've always kind of like found actually rang true, is that, like, so you said give up miniatures, you know what I mean? Give up miniature game when you have kids. That means you're changing your life because the kid, you change your life because you have had a kid, as opposed to including your kid in your life, right? So like when I had a kid, I would get up and do like the 4 a.m. feeding so my wife could rest, because I would go to work, you know, and be traveling and stuff all the time. So when my baby daughter woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, I'd go get the bottle out of the fridge, because my wife would pump so that I could feed the baby too, and then I would sit up with her if she didn't want to go back to sleep, and I would just paint. Or I'd play video games, like whatever. Because if she's not going to sleep, I'm not going to sleep either. I'd put her in the swing, and eventually she'd pass out, and I would put like 2 or 3 colors of miniatures down. And that to me in my head, I figured out later on, that was me just being like, I'm not going to change what I do. I got free time. I'm going to do this thing with my free time that I like doing. And I'm just going to sit with my daughter and do it. So like, I think it all just comes down to like your attitude and how you approach things. You can either see a big thing like that happening in your life as something you need to fit yourself around, or you can kind of just see yourself like drawing that thing in and including it in your life. And I took the second path, probably because I was lucky enough to get that advice, but it's because it's not really advice, it's more just perspective. I guess that's why it stuck with me. And I kind of just apply that to everything. You know, like, you don't have to change who you are or what you do around people, even like getting married, like wives, girlfriends, relationships. Like, I'm never going to change who I am, you know, because that's, if I have to change who I am for something that comes into my life, then that something's probably not right for me, right? Or I can just be myself, and if it's right for me, then that's just going to work, you know what I mean? Or it's going to not. So yeah, there it is. Oh, hey, Starlight Night Flame says, AOS's General's Handbook 2017 was announced today for release later this year. Okay. That's cool. Yay! I don't think it's gonna change anything. Like, I mean, it might change point values and stuff for how things are like done. But I honestly, the great thing about AOS is when new books come out, I just don't care because like they're so cheap usually. Anything you need to play, like the core rules are 4 pages, and the General's Handbooks have always been like $20. So it's not like buying like another $80 book to play the game. Like I just go grab the new book. I'm actually excited because I hope it has new missions because I love the missions. I love the match play missions. If it changes the match play missions, that'll be awesome. Because I'd love 6 new match play missions and a bunch of like new jank to play with. I think that'd be awesome. And even if they change up like the Grand Alliance like items and traits and give us new ones, like if they did that every year, I think that'd be amazing. I'd be super stoked about that just because it would shake up how the game's played. It would almost be like when other companies like Privateer releases Steamroller, or when the new ITS document comes out for Infinity. If it just gives you an excuse to like revitalize your interest in stuff you already own, then I'm all for it. And they've made a point of making all that stuff super affordable because it's just there to get you interested in playing the game. So I'm jazzed about that. That's gonna be awesome. Philip J. Mead, much painting in Shadowrun happened with my kid in the baby swing or holding her hand. Like I used to have this like. So my old house in Memphis, the upstairs like I guess family room, we had a big pull-out couch on, and when my daughter was sleeping, after she'd finished her feeding, she would sit on my lap on this pillow like a boppy, and like my arms would like perfectly fit around it with a controller. And I remember playing like what was I playing? I was playing Metro last night while she was like sleeping on top of me. And I would just sit there and like play for an hour or two, and then finally like she'd fall asleep and I'd stick her in the swing, or I'd stick her back in her crib, and just go back to playing. So tons of stuff. Like if you just changing who you are when something big happens in your life. If it's for the better, like of course self-improvement is one thing, but like. You should never have to stop doing something that you like, unless it's hurting you, you know what I mean? Like, unless it's something that's actually physically hurting you or making you sick or something. Like, changing something that you're passionate about because of something new entering your life just seems like, I don't know, it seems crazy to me. Like, I couldn't possibly do it. What else we got? Any more questions in the mailbag? Nope, that's it. That was the last question in the mailbag, too. I had three new questions this week. Anthony Lee says, I'd love to see some revamped Mighty Empire stuff in the new handbook. That would be cool. Even if it was just more playstyles. Or even if they included Skirmish in the handbook. That would be really cool. Because Skirmish was such a great little, like, I think it's $10, $12, something like that as a supplement. If they expanded Skirmish, I think General's Handbook also had Path to Glory in it. But if they expanded Skirmish in the General's Handbook, that'd be awesome too. Because Skirmish is great, but it's only 6 games long. And the narrative way to play it, where it's 6 games long, is like it's you can do it in like 2 days. Like and I blazed through it in like 2 days, and it was finished. I'd love to see something like that, which is progressive. I've just done actually, you guys, have I talked about this yet? I don't know if I've talked about this yet, but I actually played through the first 3 missions in Silver Tower just this past month, and one of my favorite things about Silver Tower is that they steal the Fighting Fantasy paragraph format for doing the story, and more of that in any game by Games Workshop or anybody out there, like not even Games Workshop, like just more of that where there's the don't read this until told to booklet that has all of the narrative stuff that you can have to read out loud. It just took me back to being a kid. Like it probably affected me more because I knew where it came from, and I'm so like it's such a big part of my young life reading those Fighting Fantasy novels and choose your adventure books. But like it was just so well done and fantastic and such a great addition to the game because you got this like narrative, this story. It was even progressively generated because things would happen. You have to make choices. You can go left, go right. You could help someone. You could attack someone, and it would, just like in the books, it would change how things were going to happen.
I'll tell about you something.
Okay.
I'll tell you something.
What do you want to tell me?
What's a unicorn?
What's a unicorn? Well, we're at almost 9 minutes in. We're 80 minutes in, and I now have to talk about what a unicorn is. So a unicorn is a magical type of horse that has a horn. And its name, unicorn, it means one horn. There's one horn in its head.
Oh.
Yeah. Where did that question tend to come from? Don't touch that. That's the mic.
What's a microphone?
What's a microphone? And we've reached that point of the show. You can be contained no longer. So, a microphone is a piece of equipment that lets me talk to the nice people in the chat over here, who are the patrons, who are the people that keep Daddy's little business going and buy your Cheerios.
And what's a cheer? And what's a picture? Picture.
Okay, are you asking questions of things you know about now because you want to be on the show?
It's a picture.
Do you want to be on the show? Is that what you want?
No.
Yeah.
That's a picture.
You know what a picture is. You just want to talk to the people, don't you? What do you want to ask them? Do you want to ask the people a question?
No.
What do you want to ask them? Can you ask them a question?
People.
Yeah.
Can I, have...
You don't know what to ask me. All right. So we've been invaded. This clearly is not going to be a day where she has a nap. And by 6 o'clock tonight, she will be, I don't know. She will be X23. So I want you to wave hi and bye to everybody.
Hi.
Let's do Kermit the Frog rhymes. Ready? So Kermit the Frog arms. I think we're pretty much at that point where she can no longer be contained, and I can no longer stick her back in bed so I can chat with you guys. So I hope you enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun talking. We talked about some interesting topics. 40K kind of dominated the conversation, which I think proves the point. Even in the questions you guys asked, which I think proves the point of just how in everybody's brain it is. And it's funny because this weekend I made a point. I've been trying forever to record Rumble Slam with Jay, and I made a point of going through all my books and projects of like what are things that I haven't looked at in the last little while because I've been so like caught up in all of like the mainstream things going on, and I realized I hadn't done a whole bunch of stuff like recently for games that weren't mainstream. And well, I mean, I haven't, right? But like, it wasn't in my brain as much. You know what I mean? What's the new exciting thing that I'm going to try out? And so I actually gave Steve the Scrappers rulebook, and we're going to give Scrappers a go. We recorded the Rumble Slam Let's Play, and we're going to do some more Rumble Slam stuff. Hey, can you just wait 1 second? We're almost done. And I've got all kinds of other stuff coming in, so I'm stoked about it. We got to film the end of Seekers and Sanctuary, which is going to be fun. The last 2 Relic Blade missions I'm pretty jazzed about. Add more stuff for Strikes on Wotan, which is going to wind down next month. Yeah, there's so much cool stuff that I'm working on, and it's just so funny because like it's almost distracting with the amount of conversation and stuff, questions going on about 40K because it's on everybody's mind, and so I get asked so much about it. It just puts it in my brain too, and I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I'm caught in like a vortex of conversation and topics. So we're gonna back to your regular scheduled things you never heard of probably pretty soon. So thanks for watching. Thanks to you guys for being patrons because obviously you guys do the heavy lifting here and make all of this possible and feed this kid her Cheerios, which is super appreciated by her and allows her to do things like interrupt these awesome live shows. So can you say thank you? Say thank you to all the people watching.
Thank you, all the people.
Thank you all the people watching. So we'll see you next time. We'll see you on Monday for the YouTube one. I'll put a link in the video description for the mailbox for that, and we will chat next week, 2 p.m. Eastern time. And as you can see, there's no container. I'll see you next time. Till then, I'm Ash. Apple.